Hello, it's Anthony with Land Title. I'm going to bring you our market update for the month of December. It's our year-end wrap-up, and there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening, so we better dive right into it. One of the most important things to remember when we're going through these updates is what is the market doing as a whole, right? Like, what is the trend? So over the last year, with interest rates rising, we created basically a rising inventory market. So you can really see that. But understanding the seasonality behind that is also critical. So you can really see here, basically, that green line at the top is our inventory. And over the last couple of months, November and December, we've seen a lot come off the market, right? And with things coming off of the market, it's because over the holidays, it's not the ideal time to sell, right? It's kind of frustrating. You don't really want to deal with all that around everything else. So, as sellers decide to sell less, buyers still stay active, and it actually reduces our inventory, even though we're in a rising inventory environment. So, expect that going into the new year, we're going to see a lot of listings hit the market in January, February, March, April, right? Rising inventory, but they're not all going to sell because we just don't have the buyers that we used to unless something dramatic happens with interest rates, which all the experts are saying it's not really expected to be that way, then we're going to be in a very seasonal market, right? Think something like 2018 or 2019, where we had a lot of inventory. It's kind of going to get there, right? And we just have, I mean, you can see it here. Under contracts were down by 30% again last month. That's been basically the last half of the year where interest rates were really high. It was hard for buyers and we just haven't had as much volume, right? So we're 30% down from where we were in 2021, but 2021 was like the peak of the market we've ever seen, right? We just had so many sales, we had so much going on. So 30% reduction in that puts us back in the mix with those 2018, 2019 numbers, depending on where you're at. So I think it's important to understand that whole picture of it. Another thing that was important to look at specifically when you look at Boulder County, Boulder County is going to act very different in certain places. Like the city of Boulder's inventory is actually down over the last 12 months. Now, why is it down? It's down because in affluent, high priced areas where people don't have to sell if they don't want to, right? Think marriage, divorce, babies, whatever causes people to move, buy, sell, trade real estate. If they don't like the price, they're just going to sit put, right? They just won't put it on the market. Or maybe they'll put it on the market and just let it sit on the market, right? You see it in the luxury market a lot where I want 3 million for my house, so it's just going to sit on the market for 3 million, even if it's worth 2.5 million. Think about that from the perspective of these people in the city of Boulder versus like somewhere like Longmont or Erie or Lafayette, where inventory is going to rise pretty dramatically because if you move jobs, you might have to move houses, right? You might not see that as much in those more affluent areas or those places with bigger concentrations of wealth. So Boulder's kind of an anomaly. We need to pay attention to that, but it's going to see a lot less rise in inventory over the next year or so because people just won't sell if they don't sell. That actually insulates that market quite a bit from price depreciation, which we'll talk about in a minute because we saw some of that in Boulder County over basically an 8 month period. I would say that January is probably the last month you're going to feel that or see that. And then we're going to see that rise going into that rise in appreciation back into the spring market as you have a lot of buyers taking place. So let's go over to the next slide. The new listings coming on the market is really important to understand right now. And I think the most important part is we had 132 listings, down 32% from last year, right? We had this huge drop. We're basically back to 2018 levels. 2018 is that purple line at the bottom. So expect something similar to 2018 this year, I think, because if it's harder for buyers to get out and shop and there's less of them, chances are the sellers in Boulder County will just not sell as many homes because some people will have to sell. But if we're going from 200 to 500 units a month on the market, that's still a lot of inventory coming on the market. We're going to see a rise in inventory across the county. The big difference is that's not like what we've seen over the last 4 years or 3 years, right? Depending on what's going to happen there, expect that 30% reduction from 2022 into that January, February, March timeframe where we just see a reduction in total inventory because people that don't have to sell aren't going to sell if they don't like the price. There's just not as many buyers out there to purchase them. So we sit on our hands, right? You didn't see this in Denver. In 2018, the numbers for new listings were really, really similar to everywhere else. But in Boulder, because of that insulation from the market, you're just going to see less units come on the market. Now, if we look at it from a month supply of inventory level, keep in mind how extreme the seller's market still is, right? We just don't have a lot of inventory on the market. So if you're early to market as a seller, this could still be a really good selling season for you. Now, if you're up into 2019, think about like 4.5 months of inventory. It's going to take us a couple years to get there, even if interest rates stay really high. Now, chances are we're going to see inventory come on the market a lot in 2023. By 2024, interest rates should slowly start to come down. We kind of get used to that 5% mark or wherever we end up landing for interest rates. And then eventually we're going to be in a major inventory shortage again because we just aren't producing enough inventory, right? I show in my economic update. If you guys haven't seen that yet, tune in. I think I'm teaching at Bolo on February 10th. So you can jump on it there, or I'll probably do one over Zoom as well. But essentially, we have like 7 or 8,000 people a year that move to Boulder County. We produce about 1,500 houses, right? So every year we're digging ourselves deeper into this inventory shortage. And that basically creates this kind of an environment where we just have high appreciation. It's going to be less and less affordable all the time if we're not building enough units for the people that are going to move here. And we keep creating just an astronomical amount of jobs, which is really cool. But it definitely is not helping our housing. So here's the other side of the situation. What are buyers going to be doing? What should you expect? How do you explain that to them? Well, think about it this way. Days in MLS is active to under contract time. We're at 44 days right now. It should rise one more month into January. And then we're going to see it trend back down into May, right? So it's going to speed up the market, but we're not going to be anywhere near where we were over the last couple of years. I would expect that, 35 to 25 range by May timeframe. But I mean, we're still talking a month under contract on average. So if things are priced right, they're going to move quick. If they're not priced right, or if inventory starts to really balloon up, you're going to see this number start to rise really fast into next fall. So as a buyer, shop early, right? As a seller, list early. Very rarely do those things kind of come at the same time. But I think if you will weather those interest rates and then refinance out later down the road or use those products like the 2-1 buy downs, you're going to really benefit from that as a buyer buying early because it's still Boulder County. We're still going to see price appreciation. And yes, interest rates are going to come down. So it's going to make affordability change later. So technically, it could be more affordable to buy in the fall. But that doesn't change the fact that you're going to get a better deal in the spring. And with a refinance, your payment's going to decrease. And then technically, you win both ways, right? So I think that's really important to be able to explain it that way. If we look at it from this perspective, this is our buy price point. I really like you guys using this with your clients because I think it's easier for them to understand. Okay, I'm looking at 800,000. Let's look at what's happening in the 800,000 market, right? At 800,000, we only have 69 units on the market in December. It's super low inventory. We only had 42 sales though, right? So we just don't have the sales to keep up with what we were used to in the past. So it's going to be less buyers out there shopping. So if you're a seller, get to market as fast as you can because that February timeframe or January timeframe for the last part of this month is really going to benefit you because there's not a lot of inventory on the market yet. With the reduced amount of buyers, you want to be in the best place to sell at the right time. Now, if we look at it from a month supply of inventory and days on market perspective, look at that 800,000 price point again, 1.3 months of inventory. It's a super seller's market still, right? Balanced markets are 4 to 6 months, right? To get a balanced market, you got to go to 3 million and up. We just aren't there yet. So that's a really important part to pay attention to. If you look at it by days in MLS, though, 800 to a million, you're talking 38 days in the MLS. I mean, they're going under contract relatively fast, faster than a lot of the rest of the market. Obviously, that 2.5 to 3 range is pretty skewed because there was only one sale last month. So it went under contract in 4 days. It must have been great, right? I mean, that's the nice thing about having houses that are buttoned up and move-in ready and they look good and they're staged and whatever, is they go under contract fast, right? So the one person that was shopping from 2 to 2.5 million that pulled the trigger, or 2.5 to 3 million, they went under contract in 4 days. That's the thing you got to remember is we should start to see those higher end luxury as inventory rises, the days in MLS should actually get longer as well. Look at that 3+ million market. We're up to 119 days in the MLS. That's because you have stuff that's been sitting on the market for a while. And some of that stuff starts to go under contract, and this is what you see. All right, let's move on to the next one. I think the sold analysis, this is like what we're talking about year-to-date sales, right? We were down 23% year-to-date. I wouldn't expect that extreme of a slowdown into next year, but do expect like January, February, March, April to have about that, 20 to 30% reduction in under contracts, right? And in sales. That's because those were still 3%, 4% interest rates, right? People could still purchase really at an affordable rate back then. So we're still kind of adjusting to that post, June, July market where we really started to see the sales fall off. We're going to be in a similar situation like what we saw this fall and winter into the spring, but I mean, it's seasonal, right? So we're still going to have a lot of transactions taking place. We're just not going to have, probably those 600 plus months like we did the last couple of years, right? We should be somewhere in the 500 range. So we do have a dramatic shift in the market taking place. It's important for us all to understand that and kind of work through that, right? A lot of people are asking me about average sales price and what's happening there. We've been chasing prices down. How long is that going to happen or what happened? Well, if you look year over year, even the year over year date with the composition of sales change that took place, we're still up 3%. That's a modest range. Our trailing 12-month number, that percentage change at the bottom there, Boulder says 13% increase in sales price. Think about it. You had a 20% increase in sales price from January to April, right? We chip away at it a little bit every month. We slow things down. We decrease, let's just call it a percentage, 1% a month from April to the end of the year. That's 8 months. We will drop by 8%. And here we are still at a 13% rise, right? The composition of what's out there has changed so much and what people are buying has changed so much because the affordability with those loans has changed so much. So it's not apples to apples comparison. So I like those big long-term averages, like a trailing 12-month figure, to have this conversation because go up 21%, drop by 1% a month every single month all the way to December. And then we're going to be back off to the races again. And we're going to see some appreciation in the market. Now, I would expect really modest appreciation, but no one in Boulder County likes selling for a loss. We know this. It's an expensive market. It's insulated. People have really good jobs. They're not going to lose a bunch of employment during the downturn that we're most likely going to see this recession coming, right? So that being said, this is such a safe market. I think it's really important to articulate that to all of our clients. All right, so this one I really like to kind of articulate the difference between the previous year and now. This is a really good time to shoot a video on this one. If you need a quick slide to like pop up and throw something on Instagram or throw something out to your database, this tells you a lot, right? You can see just how dramatic the change had been. Number one, we were in an inventory shortage early on, so you could see how that affected the market, and then you could really see as interest rates rose just how that stifled sales, right? And you can really see the affordability crisis we had. I mean, year to date, solds in Boulder were down 28%, right? 1,500 total sales versus 2,200 last year. But we did have the most sales we've ever seen before in 2021, right? That being said, you see a slowdown in all of these markets outside of Erie, but Erie had such a shortage of inventory for so many years that I think you finally saw with active units rising, people just flooded into that market. You get a lot for your money out there. So maybe if you wanted to live in Louisville or Superior or Lafayette and you just couldn't quite get the house you wanted, Erie was a little bit better buy for your money. And a lot of people made that decision. But other markets have all responded in that 20% or so range where we've really seen those sales come down. The last slide I really wanted to hone in and talk about, this is our percentage sold price to list price. So basically, this is detached houses. You can see that we had the most extreme swing that we've ever had in the history of real estate in Boulder County, right? We went from 109% listed sale price. I mean, literally, people were throwing money at stuff, right? And then as interest rates rose and buyers had to leave the market, we went into the lowest point I've seen in my career. I think it's back to 2012 or maybe even worse than that. Actually, at this point, 96.7% listed sale price, and it doesn't include all those seller concessions. So a lot of stuff we see at Land Title has, 2-1 buy downs or interest rate buy downs or, $10,000 for a furnace, right? We see a lot of that, but that doesn't go into this price. So this is truly just negotiations off the purchase price. So this was the time to buy, right? And I think if you're an investor or something like that, you could probably get in January still, squeeze in maybe, maybe into February where you could get some really good list sale prices. But we're going to trend like 2019, much more, 98% to 100% maybe by the peak of the market. And it's going to trend back down. And I really don't think it's going to be this extreme next fall, right? We're not going to, we might have more inventory, but we'll also have more buyers with interest rates, hopefully creeping down as they're supposed to do. All right. Well, I'm Anthony at Land Title. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me for other data, other information. and happy to talk to you more about what's happening with your listings or your buyers in these submarkets. And hopefully we'll catch you next time. Take care.